Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. This is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School. I'm also, I have two fellowships right now, one at the Business School for Entrepreneurship, the LePage Faculty Fellow, and I also have another really cool fellowship at the Newcomb Institute, the Greenbaum Fellowship, looking at narrativity, gender, and fiber. And, of course, I just want to quilt. Okay, today on the Trademark Lectures, we're going to be talking about a number of topics. We're going to be looking at, 1, do I need a lawyer? 2, what do you get if you do a trademark? And then 3, what professional services are out there to help you with your trademark? And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the book. So you have a means of comparison of sort of why you need a trademark, what you get from it, and sort of what your choices are in terms of getting a trademark. Now, I have to say that I'm pretty psyched about our book because we're teaching people the sort of core elements of how to choose a name, and they are getting it done. It's taking them maybe an hour to hour and a half to read the book, and then about 20 to 30 minutes to file the registration. It is a good use of your time. We also see that people are understanding a lot more about when somebody is infringing or not infringing your work, what it means to have a generic mark, how to choose a mark, how to protect your business. And we're seeing a transformation in how people are approaching trademark. So I'm super psyched about that. I think I've said before that I really believe that when you're starting a business, there are like 4 things you really have to do, maybe 5. You need to decide what, if you're going to become an LLC or corporation or do something like that. You need a EIN number, your employer identification number. That's from the IRS. You need to start your website and social media, which isn't too hard to do. And as you choose your name, you really do need to do the trademark work. And, for $225, you can register the mark and be in good, know that it's yours as you start to build your brand. And I think in this world that's so very important, and that message isn't getting out. So today we're talking a little bit more about sort of, okay, well, if I want to do this, like, how do I do it? And again, I think for most situations, purchasing the book and working through the book is the way to go. And as I mentioned before, we're going to start having monthly free workshops that if you've purchased the book, you can come and do some work with us. We're also going to start to have some videos for those that have purchased the book, just a whole resource center that gets triggered when you buy the book. All right, so do I need a lawyer? So trademark lawyers are awesome. I train people to be trademark lawyers. That's my job. But you don't necessarily need to hire a lawyer. In many instances, you can do it yourself with a little guidance, and that's why we wrote the book, because we saw a gap between those that could afford an attorney and those that couldn't. We also saw the rise of professional services that when we actually looked into them in my trademark and copyright classes, weren't really great. So I felt like they weren't giving people as much as they really needed. And it was kind of like you were paying for something that wasn't great. So we decided to build our own book, and that's what we did. Okay. So let's take a look. So when do you need a lawyer? First, if you are a foreigner, if you're not living in the U.S., you're not a domestic author, you're not a domestic company, you do need a lawyer. So the USPTO does not allow you to register on your own as a DIY without a lawyer if you don't live here, if your business isn't here. So that's super important. And we've been working with people to help them when that is the case, with with finding lawyers that understand our system, our process, and then we'll allow them to review what they've done to charge them a bit less. So trademarks can be filed by regular people. And there's a box that says, I'm not an attorney. And we are finding that if that's the case, that if you do have an office action, which is just a response, they say, oh, your application isn't exactly what we want it to be, they're pretty gentle. So that I think is super interesting, that's the case. Okay, so let's say you do want to hire an attorney. Well, I think that what the book, and we've seen this, we've had examples of this, people telling us that they read the book, they did the work, and then they went to the attorney, and the attorney only charged them for an hour of their time because they were already so well prepared and had everything ready to go that it didn't cost very much of the attorney's time. So for, $50, the book usually is around, it retails for $75, but we usually have it for $50. You can cut your legal fees down significantly. And I think that's really, really awesome. Also, there are many law schools around the country that have pro bono clinics. So you can look around to see if there's one of those. We have one at Tulane. I think the problem with those is that it's on the time of the school year. And so you may need to do it before they're available. Also, you may lose priority if someone else registers it before you do because you were waiting for the students. So I don't think this is a super keen choice, but it is a possibility of something to do. There are also resources out there, professional services that we've taken a look at. We even had an interview on one, Trademark.com. Trademark.com is what we're finding with these services is that they're only using really the free USPTO database, and they're just putting it into a nice new wrapper. And for me, I think that's not good enough because you need to do a lot more work than that to make sure the mark is available. And so I would caution you to sort of check and see if that's what's happening with these. There's another company called CompuMark that's very famous, and it costs about $700 to do the search. They give you a little bit more, but I think that with our system, you're replicating what they're doing. So they're doing the only thing you're not getting, I think, is, which is a little bit harder to do, is a state trademark search. But in most cases, if that's I think that if you're doing the federal search, you're doing a Google search, you're doing all the other searches, and the strategy, you're approaching a strategy of whether that mark is a strong mark. Most of the time, that's going to be okay. We've had CompuMark searches done, and they can be expensive. Now, if you're a big, huge company, or you're going to go global, spending the $5,000 to get a full global search, or spending the $700 or $800 to get an individual search is probably worth it. But for most entrepreneurs, they just don't have that kind of money, and that's not kind of where they're playing. LegalZoom is also another way to go. It offers simple searches and trademark filing. They have direct hit searches and a comprehensive search. And, we're teaching you a lot about how to do that, but if you feel like you want to do that, you can do that. That's an option. You do pay extra to have them do the work, but it is one way to go, and we have had people use it. My dad, who's a lawyer, used to tell people to go there all the time. Trademark Express is another one. Trademarkia is another one. These are full service searches. Trademark Express is a full service search and application site where you can also hire attorneys. Trademarkia has a really nice interface, but it's basically just the USPTO site again. It does that's what that is. But again, if this is now, we do say that many of these services only focus on the application process, and they're not thinking through the names, the conflicts, the strength of the mark. And that's where I feel like that is a huge disservice to people, because if you haven't thought through that first process of whether you can have Apple for apples, which you can't, your mark's going to get rejected. And so our book, what we do is we first take you through sort of what is a trademark, how to sort of think about choosing a name, and then it goes into the application process. And so I think that that's a really important step, and it's not one to miss. Okay, so can you DIY your own trademark? Absolutely. We've been doing it now for a year. We've had some really great successes. We're really proud of our track record. The USPTO does not require you to have an attorney to register a federal trademark, and they've streamlined the process, added helpful videos, and they made the form basic enough that with a little bit of knowledge, you can learn to file your own trademark and help your friends. Now, I will say that the trademark application is only confusing because it's got a ton of text, and there's like little checkbox every once in a while that you need to know. But what we've done in the book is that we take you screen by screen through the process and help you understand what's happening. The other thing that we do in the book, I know I'm talking a lot about the book today. The other thing we do in the book is design marks, your logo. So if the logo that you've created is really important and you want that registered as well as part of your mark or separately, all of these services, they don't deal with design marks. They don't deal with your logo. Our book, which I'm so insanely proud of, walks you through how to register a design mark. It also talks about a collective mark. So let's say you have a quilting collective where everybody gets together and supports each other, and it's a real cool thing. Then you can register that as having a member. Also, a certification mark. It talks about a certification mark, and most of these spaces don't. So if you want to have a certification mark, we're working with someone on one of those, of a certain way you do things or a class you have for people. You can do that as well. So trademark is super, super, super fun. Don't be scared. It's just a little bit of thinking and a little bit of money, and your whole business is protected in really good ways. Now, what if you already have a business and you've been using the name? Usually that's okay because you've chosen it for its uniqueness, but you can use the book to do the same thing. You can walk through to see why it is, if it's protectable or not, and then you can register it. What about if you have a blog site? Do you need to trademark your blog name? And I think it really just depends on how much you care if someone else uses the name in the field. And then also if you're doing something in commerce, if you have a shop, how big you want your blog to get and how important it is that your name is your name. I think the big problem is that if you don't register your mark, you're not on notice. You haven't put the world on notice that you're claiming that name for that thing because it's in quilting or whatever it is that you're doing. And so I think that if you are afraid of a bigger company or someone else using your name, the best way for them to know that you are using it is to register the mark. Okay, so I think the next steps are we'll do a little bit more on these. We're going to do a couple more lectures, but the next step is if you're really interested, buy the book. The book you can get access to it at our website, www.JustWannaQuilt.com, and let's get started. It's going to be awesome. It's not scary. It's fun. It's empowering. It's awesome. Have a great day.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, and I'm Elizabeth Townsend Garr. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.